Okay. And hello, friends. It is I. Sometimes it's me, the Black Viking.
Oh no.
Anyway, today I want to introduce you to my very good friend, Geoff. Shall I just call you Geoff?
Yeah,
You want to
Geoff,
reveal?
it's fine.
You want to talk about yourself? Can I mention your full name?
If you want.
Oh, you didn't shave.
I didn't shave.
Oh my gosh, he didn't shave.
Neither of you.
Well, I shaved a little bit. Anyway, we got to be very quick because Geoff is hard pressed for time. Unfortunately, he just had me waiting and waiting and waiting. He's a busy man. I understand, and hey, you can't practice forgiveness unless someone offends you, okay? Geoff, I just want to talk to you about some of the dark arts you're involved in, the dark arts of what would you call it? Psychiatry, psychological.
The professional term is an integrative counsellor.
And
that's my
the dark
technical
arts of an integrative counselor is what we're going to dab and delve into over the coming weeks. So I hope to meet with Geoff occasionally to discuss some of the stuff. But for today, we wanted to talk about what did we mention? Current books, maybe that you're
mentioned current
reading.
books. You mentioned a theory or two that I had mentioned to you previously that you were taking a bit of an interest in.
And because it was borrowed heavily from me. like a lot of this work, molecular biology of cells, whatever. Go on.
If you say so.
I'm being an ass.
Yeah, well, but, so, yeah, I don't know where you want to be.
All right, so what are you currently reading? Actually, there is a book that interests me.
Oh, yeah, there is. So, yeah, I was very fortunate. I was on a driving trip. I was going down to see friends, and at a services, there was a little charity stall, just left as an honesty table. So books, and then you put the coins in, you take the book, and I stumbled upon this one. It's by Paul. So I've got the book off.
Can we show it?
Yeah, of course you can. So it's by Paul Tournier. There.
Go on. And what is the most Creative Suffering by Paul Tournier? Yeah. So and you've shared some excerpts from the book.
I've been taking lots of pictures of it. It's a very good book, and he's a Swiss doctor, a psychologist predominantly, and he in the book. So this is written in the 80s. He's actually a much older man. He's in his 80s, and he's a widow.
Oh, when he wrote that.
Yeah. So this is one of his last books, I believe, that he wrote. He references earlier books, which I would like to probably read at some point.
Right.
And I didn't recognise it, but he's actually a Christian man as well, which I didn't know when I first picked up the book. I thought it was just going to be about psychology, being a doctor, working with patients, and that side of things. But actually, he brings a lot of elements of the Christian faith in with him as well. But not in a spiritual sense, but in more of a grounded sense of bringing it into the work.
Oh, okay.
And looking at the human condition along with what God says.
Okay, I thought then, because it was, if he has a Christian lean, that the idea is that it would have been more spiritual.
To a point, yeah.
Because a lot of the materials that we do read can be a little, they are devoid of any reliance or any consideration of our spiritual selves.
No, he as the book Creative Suffering, it's about the suffering side of life. So the idea that we do suffer in life, and why that might be, and at points within the book, it leans towards Christian, and he actually does quote verses, quote scripture.
Sure.
But actually, it's about bringing that. Okay, so what does God say about suffering? Because we all suffer. And the idea is kind of trying to, I think it's him coming to a point in his life where he's like, he's widowed, he is suffering in some way, but actually how can he live in that suffering a full life? Right.
That's quite interesting. So when was the book actually published?
Oh, that I do not know. Give me one moment. So the book was actually published it's first published in French in 1981. This is published in 1982. So this is an English English translation.
This is the last of it. All right. So what is your product? Because I've been waiting for a month or so for you to finish 112-page book. But this could only mean that the book is maybe has tremendous depth and has passages that are worth reading and rereading.
Oh, definitely,
So,
definitely. I've taken some, as I said, some pictures of it, and I'd like
yeah.
to just read you an excerpt, really.
Mm,
And this is actually from quite far in, and he's talking about the Western cultures. So
mm,
mainly he's from Switzerland. That's where he's mainly practiced. So he's got, of course, a Western leaning to
right.
his idea. And he says about this actually. He's talking about emotions, and he says this. So I'm kind of halfway through a sentence, but so please forgive me. He says, "It takes courage, likewise, to accept the emotions of others. That is why in our Western world, most people stick carefully to intellectual discussion and objective theorizing, which do not require us to involve anything of ourselves or of our personal emotions.
Mm,
And it is also the reason why we are so lonely with our unexpressed emotions. The communication of courage and that of the emotions go hand in hand, and are the necessary condition of personal contact."
right.
That spoke to me. I think the idea, I'm a counsellor,
Mm,
and the idea that I sit with people all of the time who sit with these unexpressed emotions, and for whatever reason, they do not have the courage to discuss these things with the people that are close to them, family, friends. And the idea that you have to go to a stranger to discuss your emotions is actually quite, I find, very interesting. And it's something that I've had to do in my life. I go to counselling as well. And the
right.
idea that that actually the feeling of loneliness in the West is a lack of courage to speak about your true self
Really?
has
So
troubled
it
me.
places an emphasis on, or makes it a requirement for individuals to have an improved existence, to talk about their emotions. I mean, to
Yes,
simply discuss their emotions.
yes. How are you
But
feeling?
but is
Yes,
it
yes.
necessary to talk about your emotions, or to actually to feel them, to grasp them, to I mean,
Mm.
does talking about your emotions help you to actually process them?
I would say, definitely say so. I think I find that thinking, speaking, and writing are three very different constructs of our inner life.
Say that again. Thinking.
Thinking,
Mm,
speaking, and writing are three very different constructs to expressing your self human
right.
condition.
So, do you set aside time to think?
I try my best to. I probably get inspired to think when reading books like that.
Yeah.
So they some that will spark a thought or a feeling that I have, and then I will attempt to run with that as far as I can.
Right. But do you ever like just consciously, you enter a space and you say,
Mm.
I just need to think.
I probably don't actually. Yeah.
I'm really trying to learn to
Mm.
like think. I like to be in spaces where it's just me and my mind,
Yeah,
and
I get that.
just explore like some of the madness and the
Yeah.
rational and irrational parts of my own mind.
Mm.
And so recently, I had my father passed
Mm.
away recently,
Yeah.
and I had to accept that I was going to be washed over by a
Mm.
set of emotions,
Yes.
and emotions I've never ever experienced before,
Mm.
and I kind of like braced myself,
Mm.
and I didn't think any of those emotions would be grief, and I
Yes.
and because
Yeah.
I was not particularly close with my father,
Mm.
I still have not felt that bereavement, that
Yeah. Yeah.
measure
Yeah.
of grief
Yeah.
that would maybe grip most men
Mm.
who have lost a father,
Mm.
or most children who have lost a father.
Mm.
But what I have had is it's just an odd new sensations,
Mm.
and I have to take them on,
Mm.
accept them for what they are. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm still working my
Yeah.
way through them. They haven't caused me to do anything
Mm.
zany, except maybe go get a vape.
Coca-Cola
And
vape.
then, it's supposed to be like a cigar. Anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, this is finished,
Mm.
and we're going to ceremoniously
Smash it. Like.
discard this
Yeah.
in a very short period of time. All right. So your takeaway for that book, what do you think then? The work that this man produced,
Mm.
in what is the term? Well, is it in conflict with current thinking, because in my mind,
Mm.
I think there's a heavy reliance on
Yeah.
the usage of medications to deal with
Yes.
issues with
Yeah.
people, and I don't want to like misspeak,
Yeah.
but I'm very concerned by like some of the
I get
people I've
that.
been involved with, that
Yeah.
I know that they went through trouble,
Mm.
and those troubles need to be dealt with.
Yes. I think in today's culture, I think the idea to push about speaking about yourself is better, in terms of, I think there's a general understanding that we as individuals experience something which we then need to express.
Mm.
I think the problem is I think they're in the counselling room, and actually what he speaks about in terms of sharing yourself with someone else is the fact is that it's actually a two-way thing. So when someone shares something with me in the counselling room, I reflect it back at them.
Right.
And I, on some level, not all the time, because there is a level of understanding, but there is a level of challenge that comes with that.
Mm.
And the fact is that sometimes your emotions are wrong. I do think that. Sometimes what you feel, for whatever reason, is... I shouldn't say the word wrong.
Yeah,
Because actually wrong,
that pricked me just now.
yeah. But I think
Because
that something is going on inside of you that... I see the physical world and the emotional mental world. I see it as you're walking with a limp.
yeah,
And the fact is that that limp can be healed. So not to say that it's wrong, is that there's something wrong in the sense that something isn't quite working for you.
for me, I think the challenge is actually the definition of the word emotion.
Mm.
And as I said, because I feel like I don't have the language or the words to say, to go back to my father.
Mm.
I don't know that they can actually even be defined or described as emotions.
Yeah.
But I mean, is the way I feel, is that an emotion? Is the way I react or respond
Mm.
subconsciously
Mm.
to it, like when you feel disturbed
Mm.
by events.
Yeah.
Are those truly emotions? So
I would say on some level that they are. People agree on the unconscious and the conscious mind, and the fact that your unconscious can be disturbed. And you
I don't
don't
know
even
if
realise it.
well, I know you have to go soon. Like,
That's
so,
okay. So
again, this is really
carry on.
just to introduce you
Mm,
to
yeah.
some people, some
Yeah.
folks, and I
I've got
really
another
look
quote.
forward
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. Well, it's the idea, the fact that your emotions are inner. So the fact is that, I'm trying to think how to describe it. So your inside world is yours,
Mm,
and you're going to be interacting with the world, and sometimes the world is going to disturb you for some apparent reason.
right.
And I think to attempt to suppress that is not healthy.
Okay. Can you generate emotions? Because emotions would
What,
typically be
genuine?
a response to a stimulation or something external to ourselves.
Oh, well, I... So in my counselling, I talk about certain things that stimulate emotion,
Mm,
mainly past events, sometimes future events if I'm concerned or worried or stressed about them.
mm.
So in some ways, I am stimulating my emotions. And I think from that passage I read, it's the idea that it is to stop the intellectualization of every conversation that we have, and especially as men, we speak about ideas, don't we?
Ah, ah,
And the idea that actually
ah.
you can have both conversations at the same time. So, for example, for me in the counselling room, I actually have to decide: am I thinking something, or am I feeling something towards what someone is saying to me? And
I
actually,
have to
I
think
then
about that.
and yeah,
I have to think about how I feel about that.
yeah, you have to on some level. And actually, then I respond. Am I responding because I'm thinking a thought that they've pricked in me, or am I experiencing a feeling that they're giving me by what they're talking about and how they're feeling?
Mm.
The empathic feeling that I'm attempting to obtain from them, to understand why they might be feeling the way that they are, and to attempt to connect with that feeling inside of them, and to help them give words to that emotion. Because one of the things that people stumble on is that they have a feeling but then can't give it language.
Right.
And that's one thing.
Which is where
Which you're
is what
saying
I'm trying to.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, I don't need to describe this to anyone else. I
No.
don't need to like impart anything that I'm actually going through, except that because I'm not certain what it is, you know, and because I want to value it, I want to give it tremendous meaning.
Yeah.
I don't know it's worth it yet. It's like I'm still digging. I'm still sifting through it. Like, is it gold or is it shit? You know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think I don't think it's a bad thing. So the way I think about it is it's okay to go down the path of the thoughts.
Yeah.
And to kind of get lost at the end of it. I think that's so. In the same way that you're saying that I have this feeling, but actually at the end of it, it gets all blurry and I can't really describe it. I can't give it any words. And I think that's okay, but I think in time, whether through self-exploration or through sitting with a counsellor, sitting with a pastor, sitting with a friend, actually to be able to express and go, I am feeling this, I think is actually some way of actually resolving that feeling. Because otherwise, I think for some people, not everyone, and I try not to speak generally, the idea that feelings do disturb people, and a feeling that sits with someone does disturb them over time, and to actually come to some form of resolution with that feeling and going, I actually feel this, and that's okay, I think is a good and healthy thing to do, because we carry loads of things anyway.
There was I would argue that I was the first to ever use this term, that I invented this, the idea of being an emotional stoic has...
okay. Yeah.
Visit emotionalstoic.com today. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
By the time, hey, don't steal my ideas. Geoff, I really don't want to make you too late.
That's fine.
We'll meet up next week.
Sure.
I'd love to actually explore this on, levels, you know.
And I can explain that thought process I have between the thinking and the feeling bit
as well.
But it's something new that I'm trying to experience, knowing that I struggle to connect with my emotions. It's okay. So how does that operate? Because in a way, they're two different paradigms of experience. Not paradigms. They're two different experiences that I'm having that kind of don't always relate to one another.
You know, just to share with you. So this week I was talking to someone that we used to work with in the past, right? And I would tell you that this individual is a very interesting man. But discussing matters with him, and this week I told him that, in my opinion, I am still growing as a man. And you know, again, this level of introspection and this level, you know, of self-investigation, I think is so important. And I think for myself, that came just a little later than I would have preferred it to get to. But still going to take the time to do it. And you know, I just recommend, we should recommend to anyone out there who is experiencing, you know, difficulties, trouble, strife in their lives, whether you be man or woman, double X or XY chromosomes. We're not gonna have that conversation. What do you recommend that they find someone?
Talk to Samaritans, talk to a friend, talk to a family member, find a pastor, anyone in your, like, a boss, a colleague.
Hopefully a positive influence, not someone who's going to tell you, let's go smoke a joint or let's go to the pub. That's not a solution.
I'll send Robert it's a 2-minute clip. And you can post it at the end, and it's a lovely little animation. It's about 2 minutes long, and it talks about the difference between someone who's empathic and someone who's being sympathetic.
Right.
And actually, you can then begin to recognise what someone is then giving you. So
Cool. Well, I want to thank you again for taking the time out.
No worries,
you know, just let's see where we end up with this.
Why not?
Okay.
Let's keep going.
All right. Don't forget, friends. It's me, your hyper humble. I got a new term. It used to be super humble. Now it's hyper humble.
It's another level.
Hyper humble. Yeah. Now that I'm doing this stuff, I'm hyper humble. Life has kicked my behind. Geoff.
Pleasure, Robert. Pleasure.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you can climb down. I know what it's like down here. And you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.